Well, happy Tuesday, everybody. So thankful you've joined me for today's devotion and our Bible reading plan. We are in Psalm 77 this morning. What I wrote at the top of my journal when I read this psalm is this is a very human psalm. A lot of human emotion. Just there's a rawness to this psalm as the author is in a dark place. There had been a time in his past, in fact, for many years when he was happy and felt that he was living in the blessings of God and the favor of God. But now, for quite some time, things have been different. His life had been really, really hard, and he had gotten to the point that he was feeling like, well, maybe God had abandoned him. And he prays and he sighs and it's just continually sighing and grieving and feeling his pain. For instance, look at verse 2. He said, "In the day of my trouble I sought the Lord. In the night my hand was stretched out without weariness." In other words, God, I was calling out to you without weariness. I just kept on doing it. It was just this extended time of seeking God in the midst of his pain. Drop down to verse 7. He says, "Will the Lord reject forever?" God, it's like you've abandoned me. Are you going to keep on rejecting me forever and ever and ever? Is there ever going to be an end to all this? Verse 7, will he never be favorable again? Will God never look on me with favor again? Verse 8, has his loving kindness ceased forever? Has his promise come to an end forever? God, it seems like you don't love me anymore. Your favor's none on me anymore. Your promises, it's just bad. Verse 9, has God forgotten to be gracious, or has he in anger withdrawn his compassion? God, are you ever going to show me compassion and mercy again? Or are you mad? Are you mad at me, Lord? Most people go through seasons like that. Not everybody, but many, many people do. And some go through seasons like this that last a lot longer than others. And some have seasons like this that are a lot harder and darker than others. We don't all have the same experience in life, but to some extent, all of us will have a dark season, a dark day. It's called life. Stuff happens. And the first half of this psalm, he's expressing all of that. And then it's like a light comes on and he realizes that just focusing on his pain, focusing on his grief, on his frustration and all the problems, it's not getting him anywhere. Just dwelling on all of that, it's not changing anything, not making anything better. It's not working. And the truth is, it never does. It never does. So he begins, in the midst of his grief and his sighing and his hurt, he begins remembering, looking back to the past, remembering and celebrating some of the great things God had done in Israel's past, not so much in his life, but in the past history of the nation of Israel. So look at verses 11 and 12. He says, I shall remember. He made a choice to remember the past. I shall remember the deeds of the Lord. Surely I will remember your wonders of old. I will meditate on all your work and muse on your deeds. And drop down to verse 20, the last verse in Psalm 77. He says, you led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. So he went back and retraced God's great deeds in the past with the nation of Israel. What's the takeaway for us? Well, in the midst of this dark season in his life, when he at times was feeling like God had stopped loving him, was no longer favoring him, and had abandoned him, in the midst of that dark season, he did not deny his current reality, did not deny his problems or his pain. What he did was he added courage and faith to it. How? by reflecting on the great things God had done in the past. In the midst of his present circumstance, his present darkness, he looked back and remembered God's blessings and favor and power in the past, and that ended up giving him some courage and strength for this present dark moment to get through it. As I said, we're all going to have dark seasons. Some will be more intense than, some people's dark season will be more intense than other people's. Some people's dark season will last longer than other people's dark season. Life is not fair. And when that's going on, we have a choice to make. We can choose to be consumed by it, by the darkness, by the grief, the sighing, the pain, that we just put our head down and all we see and all we focus on is the darkness. And it doesn't help. It doesn't work. He's not saying in this psalm, deny the darkness. He's saying in the midst of the darkness, I have the courage to look back to when there was light, to what God did in the past, and let that embolden you. Let that strengthen you, your faith, your courage, so that in the midst of the darkness, some light starts shining. Otherwise, the darkness will consume you. You see, I need God to grow my faith and give me courage to get through the darkness. And I do that by remembering him and remembering the things of the past he did. If all I see is the darkness, I might just crawl up in a corner and die. And God doesn't want that. So remember and celebrate what God has done before to help you get through the dark days when they come. That's the word from Psalm 77. I'll see you tomorrow as we look at Psalm 78.